guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video is very exciting because it's kicking off some very fall themed content. That's right friends, today we're going to be chatting through my most anticipated fall fantasy releases. There are so many incredible books coming out over the next 3 to 4 months and I'm so thrilled to be chatting about some of them with you guys today. But before we dive into the books themselves, first a word from this video's sponsor, which is Trade Coffee. Hi friends, I'm so excited to say I'm partnering up with Trade Coffee for this video. If you have been watching any of my social media for any amount of time, you would know that coffee is a central part of my day every single day. In some ways, it's probably my favorite part of the day. Waking up, having a delicious cup of joe, sitting down with my favorite book is how I truly want to start my day every single day for the rest of my life, which is why I'm such a huge fan of Trade Coffee. If you're not familiar, Trade Coffee is the #1 online destination for coffee lovers for both hot and cold beverages. And via Trade Coffee, you can shop a huge plethora of different beans from so many different roasters. For me, variety is the spice of life, and I love that I can easily try so many different beans from across the country from the convenience of my own home. They also don't stop at beans. They also have a very cool and curated selection of coffee equipment to help you make the best cup of coffee at home, saving you not only time and money from shopping out at cafes. And also with this very intense summer heat in Texas, my coffee routine has also adjusted to focus a lot more on cold brew, which is also why Trade Coffee is amazing because they've teamed up with 15 different roasters to make a special cold brew bean collection. And utilizing my Trade Coffee homebrew kit, it's so easy to make myself a large and delicious batch of cold brew coffee to have readily available at my hands at all times. I basically get my beans, again, sent directly to my door, pre-ground. And this is part of that collection designed for cold brew coffee. I scoop how much coffee I want within my pitcher, fill it up with water, stick it in my fridge to let brew overnight, and get to enjoy it the next morning. And it is so dang delicious. And in honor of this very summer weather we are having, despite the fact that I very much wish it was fall, Trade Coffee is giving my audience a special limited time offer. For a limited time, Trade is giving 50% off a month of cold brew. That's around 60 cups of cold brew at 50% off when you go to drinktrade.com/peruse-project. That's drinktrade.com/peruse-project to get 50% off 1 month of cold brew coffee. And one more time if you missed it, drinktrade.com/peruse-project. Thank you again to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video, but without further ado, let's go ahead and dive back into the video. Primary focus for this video are going to be the months of August, September, and October, which is kind of when the meat of fall releases come out, but I do have a few books that came out in the end of July, as well as a couple of books coming out in November that I'm featuring as well. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in with the 2 books that came out in July that I feel like are a perfect fall TBR ad. First, we have House of the Beast by Michelle Wong, who is the graphic artist illustrator of The Legend of Korra, but this is her debut novel and it sounds so spooky, and it also has illustrations throughout it. This is a dark fantasy novel following a young woman who makes a deal with a mysterious god to get back at her aristocratic family that abandoned her. This has so many different elements that call out to me. We follow a main character who basically makes a bargain with a powerful god and monster, giving over her left arm to have access to its power. She also discovers that she is the bastard child of a very powerful family that abandoned not only her, but also her mother. When her mother falls ill and in dire need of medicine, she returns back to this family to seek help, but they shun her once again. Now she's out on a path for vengeance, and this beast that lives inside her that gives her powers also takes the form of a handsome prince sometimes. Again, I am really drawn to this very recent release. I'm also thrilled that it has illustrations throughout it. It just sounds like it's going to be so entertaining. The other July release that I of course have to feature in a fall reading wrap-up is The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno Garcia. One of my all-time favorite authors has released a gothic horror fantasy novel centering multiple generations of witches. Again, sounds perfect for some fall reading. This is a story that follows 3 different generations of women, but we first are introduced to our main character Minerva, who lives closer to present day. She is currently at university and working on her thesis with a focus in gothic horror literature, but as she begins to dive deeper into some of these manuscripts, she begins to unlock some secrets of the past regarding a very famous figure from the turn of the century, and she also begins to realize that a dark force seemingly has followed these women through time and perhaps is now following her in present day. I love Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing so much. Her combination of genres just always shines for me, and this particular release is one I'm so pumped to be picking up soon. Again, it came out near the tail end of July, and I just feel like it's a perfect fall read, so I had to include it in the wrap-up. Alrighty, now moving into the month of August, there are so many releases that it was quite hard to narrow down, but nonetheless, I did the work. First, we have the Bone Raiders, which comes out August 12th. This is said to be the start of an action-packed, have you on the edge of your seat, epic fantasy story following a group of women who harness the power of a fire-breathing lizard to protect their homeland. Based on the synopsis and what I've read from the reviews, this definitely seems like this is going to be not just action-packed, but quite punchy in its writing style and characters. I feel like this is going to have elements of like outrageous humor and just like great camaraderie, while still having some very serious and important themes as well. Plus, this is like a dragon fantasy because they're riding fire-breathing lizards, so that sounds pretty cool. Next, we have The Magician of Tiger Castle, which came out on August 5th. This is by the same author as Holes, which obviously was a childhood favorite of mine, both the movie and the book. And this is a new modern fantasy classic, all about forbidden love, a crumbling kingdom, and the love that lives inside of all of us. I also do believe this is a cozy fantasy, and the synopsis is also very much giving like classic fairy tale, which is something I personally really enjoy. This is set in a once powerful kingdom that's located in the south of France, and this kingdom desperately needs to forge an alliance. So the king has decided to marry off his daughter to a very odious prince, but there is a problem. His daughter is in love with a lowly scribe, which could obviously throw a wrench in all of his political maneuvering. So he decides to tap the shoulder of a once powerful magician who kind of fell out of favor after some bad things occurred in the past, to make a potion to make her fall in love with the right person. This gives our other main character an impossible choice in terms of what to do. I feel like this is going to be a really endearing story, maybe in the same vein as The Last Unicorn. I love very classic fairy tale-esque stories. I'm also hoping the writing style reflects that as well, but there's only one way to find out. I do just feel like this is definitely a book for me. Next up, we have The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas, which comes out August 25th. I cannot wait to read this book. Isabel Cañas is one of my favorite writers, but in particular, she's one of my favorite fall writers because she has the perfect combination of like historical writing, melodrama, horror, and romance. It's just an intoxicating combination, creating a scenario in which I could not put her books down. They're just so entertaining. This is her newest release, and this book is set in 1765 in the New World. And we follow our main character Alba as she flees her wealthy merchant family and her recent fiance Carlos to his family's nearby silver mine, but once she arrives, something very unexpected happens, and that is she becomes possessed by something living in the depths of this mine. And from there, the story begins to unravel. Here's the thing. I just trust this author implicitly, but something else I always really appreciate is her historical time periods and historical references directly impact the horror that she tends to write as well. I am just so excited for this. It's marked on my calendar. I will be reading this right away. Next, we have The Society of Unknowable Objects by Gareth Brown, who is the same author who wrote the Book of Doors. Now, I read the Book of Doors and I liked it but didn't love it, but I will say the plot itself was pretty entertaining, while I found the character work a little bit lacking, so I'm hoping with this newer release I will enjoy it more. And the synopsis does sound pretty interesting. It essentially follows the secret society of individuals who overlook a series of magical objects that have now been dormant for a super long time, but they meet every 6 months in the basement of this bookshop to make sure all of their magical items are going to continue to stay dormant and not hurt or impact anyone in the world. At the beginning of this book, though, they get wind that there is a new magical object that has appeared in Hong Kong, and they send one of their newest members, our main character, out there to investigate. And upon arrival, she's basically immediately put into danger, upending everything that she thought she knew about not only these magical objects, but also this secret society. Based on the intensity of the Book of Doors, I feel like this book is going to be action-packed. Again, I like the concept of it, and it does seem pretty consistent with the style of book that he wrote before. I'm hoping I like this more, but I will report back. Next up, we have A Theory of Dreaming by Ava Reed, which comes out August 13th. And I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting A Study in Drowning to get a sequel. I'm a little hesitant. I'm hoping that this is really going to add and not just be like an unnecessary addition to a book that I honestly otherwise really enjoy. Study in Drowning is a historical, fae, very atmospheric, very lyrical novel by Ava Reed. It also had an academic rivals to lovers situation, and it's also set primarily in this like remote, mysterious estate. Again, I really, really loved the character elements, the writing style, and just the vibe of the first one. It also was like a perfect fall read. But we are apparently getting a sequel, and we are following our two main characters setting out on yet another adventure together. Again, I feel like this could work, especially as it's centering like fae mysteries and just like other undiscovered secrets. So I'm crossing my fingers that I like this one. Next up, we have Hemlock and Silver by T. Kinfisher, which comes out August 19th. T. Kinfisher is one of my all-time favorite authors. In particular, I feel like she writes such incredible dark fairy tale reimagining. She also is an author I tend to kick off my early fall reading with every single year because she tends to have a new release that comes out in August every single year, and I'm always so excited to pick it up and read it. This time we have a reimagining of the story of Snow White. Specifically, we have a main character who is an apothecary who lives in a remote part of the forest, and she is kind of an unusual healer because she heals by utilizing poison. Obviously, a bit of a dangerous game here. At the beginning of this book, she is summoned to the king because his daughter Snow is sick, and nobody knows what in the world is going on, and it's up to our main character and some unlikely companions to try to save the day. Poison, political intrigue, T. Kinfisher's beautiful lyrical writing. I already know this is going to be a home run. Next up is actually a YA release, and that is A Spell to Wake the Dead, and this comes out August 26th. I feel like the combinations of genres that make up this book just sound really fun and appealing to me. Gothic, horror, mystery, YA novels are always just like some of my favorite, especially if there's a bit of a thriller element to them. I just think they're campy and fun, but also tend to have like a lot of heart. And this essentially follows two teen girls that has to dive headfirst into the dark mysteries of the occult to solve various murders that are occurring in their small Cape Cod town. It's described as a twisty and witchy thriller, and that just sounds adorable. I want to read it. Adorable, but also scary, for the record. And in a similar theme, I have another YA murder mystery occult-esque story, and that is The Executioners 3 by Susan Dennard. This is said to be filled with rivalry, romance, and a curse that spans generations. The synopsis is pretty short, but it opens with our main character Freddie saying she didn't mean to get half of the rival high school arrested, but when she heard shrieks in the woods, she did what she thought anyone would do, and that is call the cops for help. How was she supposed to know that it was just a bunch of kids partying? But apparently it actually wasn't, because the next day a dead body is found, and after the investigation begins to stall, our main character Freddie decides to figure it out for herself. I love a high school sleuth trying to get answers in her small town. It's just a setup that works every time for me, so this sounds quite entertaining. Next, we have the release that I'm sure is on a lot of our calendars, and that is Catabases by R.F. Kuang, which comes out August 26th. This is another standalone fantasy novel by this author. Specifically, it's following two academic rivals as they venture into the depths of hell together to find their lost, like, academic mentor. It's giving R.F. Kuang's interpretation of Dante's Inferno, and I'm very curious about it. I feel like I really love the influences. I've obviously loved R.F. Kuang's writing in the past, so I'm hopeful that I'm really gonna like this. Alrighty, now, moving on to the month of September, we're starting out with another banger. That is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross, which comes out September 2nd. I love Rebecca Ross's writing, but this particular synopsis really appeals to me. And this story introduces us first to our main character, Matilda, who was born in the firelit domain of the Underrealm and blessed with just humble messenger magic, and is also the youngest goddess in her entire clan. However, though, she also lives in a world where gods will kill each other to claim their power, no matter how much power that is. So alliances and power are incredibly important where she lives. She travels the realm, again, delivering messages, and she also has a secret that she has to keep at all costs. Everything is sort of turned upside down, though, when she meets a mortal boy who begins to dream of her in the waking world, which complicates her life in every way, shape, and form. And then of course, the other main character we follow is that boy. This sounds like a romance, but I love the fantasy setting of this. I love that it centers gods. I don't know. I'm just really intrigued by everything that Rebecca Ross is giving us in this synopsis. I already know I love her writing style and her romances. In terms of romantasy, like, Rebecca Ross is one of my favorite writers in that space. The next book that's on my list is Play Nice by Rachel Harrison, which comes out September 9th. This is a haunted house, possessed house style horror story, but with a bit of a twist. It follows our main character Cleo, who lives what appears to be a very glamorous life. She is a stylist, she is an influencer, and she's left her childhood very far behind. But underneath this glossy and beautiful veneer, she houses a secret, and that is that she actually grew up in a haunted house, or more specifically, a possessed house. After her parents got divorced, her mother Alex moved her and her sisters into a home that she quickly believed was actually possessed by a demon, resulting in a lot of very difficult situations in her childhood. Now, as an adult, Cleo and her sisters have inherited this house after the passing of their mother, and her sisters want to use it for like house flipping content, but again, the house like actually might really be possessed, so they also have to confront those realities too. I definitely feel like this is going to be an element of like family, childhood trauma with real horror, and to me this seems like a very interesting mix of things. I'm curious about this one. It has also really fantastic reviews, so I feel like this could be a really interesting pickup. Next, we have the Maiden and Her Monster, which also comes out September 9th. This is said to be a dark lyrical fantasy novel steeped in Jewish folklore, specifically the tale of the Golem. That's also a sapphic romance, also said to be for fans of Catherine Arden, Ava Reed, Hannah Witten, and Naomi Novik, some of my personal favorite authors that all write in that lyrical fairy tale space. Now, this follows our main character who basically ventures into a dark magical wood that is steeped in blood, meets a monster there. They hate each other, but they kind of have to work alongside each other. A setup I, in general, enjoy quite a bit. The thing that sold me, though, is when I was reading through reviews, a review caught my eye saying, this book is supposed to be enemies to lovers, but they hated each other for like pretty much the entire book. There wasn't a lot of romance. And that actually was like a positive light bulb for me, because I really have been craving an enemies to lovers where they actually despise each other and despise each other for like a really long time, not just like the first part of the book. So I'm really actually more curious about this than ever before, because I really want some like true hatred in my enemies to lovers, but I'll let you know. Then we have Thief of Night by Holly Black, which comes out September 23rd. This is the final book to a duology by this author, the first one being the Book of Night. I will be the first to say I was not a huge fan of the Book of Night, but I just really love Holly Black's writing so much. And I feel like I'm going to pick this book up anyway, because I'm hopeful that she'll be able to turn around the elements I didn't love so much. The setup and the ideas presented in the first book are also things that I enjoy. So again, I have like a perverse hope that this is going to turn out to be really good, but I'm also quite unsure about that. This follows our main character who sort of works in the seedy underworld of the magical space, and this series centers around like shadows and shadow magic, and a lot of drama happens in the first one, and she's basically put in the middle of all sorts of like underworld trouble. There's also a romance and these types of things. We'll see. We'll see. The reviews, pretty strong. I don't know. The next book on my list, I am so excited to read. It sounds dark and romantic and strange. And it is The Second Death of Locke, and this comes out on the 23rd of September as well. We follow our main character who is a knight, who is committed and dedicated herself to being the protector and also magical well to her mage. She goes into battle with this mage, and like it says, she has dedicated her life to this figure, Kier. She will be his blade, his healer, his protector. The deep well of raw power inside her is his to use. She will do anything for Kier. But something is really complicated when they go out on a quest together and they discover that our main character is like the root of all magic and the heir to like a lost kingdom, which I think upends his power balance. I don't know, but it's said to be a devastatingly romantic epic fantasy about the undying bond between knight and their mage. Perfect for fans of Gideon the Ninth. That seems like an interesting tie-in. I am a fan of Gideon the Ninth, but I'm curious about this. I also love like a knight situations. I'll be reading this. And the cover, incredible. Alrighty, now we're officially moving into the month of October, starting with Queen Demon by Martha Wells. I really loved The Witch King by this author, and again was a bit surprised that we're getting more books in this world, but not disappointed. And obviously Martha Wells is more so known for her Murderbot series. I really love her writing, and this fantasy book is full of like action and magic, but more so than anything, found family. The character dynamics are just so incredible. The dialogue is also hilarious, and the sort of mystery of the first one really gripped me, so I'm excited to see like where the rest of the story is going to take us from here. But again, this is definitely a fantasy series where the characters shine. One of our other main characters is like a fire demon. It's great. Next up, we also have Cinder House, which comes out on October 7th as well. This is described as a queer, gothic Cinderella retelling for fans of T. Kingfisher. And in this, we're introduced to our main character, Ella, who is a haunting. Killed by her family, she is forced to haunt her father's home. And over the years, she has taught herself to untether herself a bit, allowing herself to leave the space, but to never be seen as long as she returns to the staircase by midnight every single night. I think this is a very clever Cinderella tie-in. Everything changes, of course, when she unexpectedly meets a fairy charm seller that can see her. I love this sort of fairy tale Cinderella tie-in, but it also feels like a very fresh take. I mean, Cinderella is literally a ghost. This is also quite short, so I feel like this will be a great read to break out some of my other like longer fantasy reads this fall. Next up, we have The Scour by Richard Swan, and this comes out the 20th of October. Now, it's no secret that I love Richard Swan, so imagine my shock, surprise, and awe when I realized we were getting a prequel release to the Empire of the Wolf series. This book is set prior to the events of the Justice of Kings and follows Sir Conrad Vinvolt and Bressinger as they investigate an imprisonment of a fellow justice for murder. I already know I'm gonna love this, and I can't wait. That's literally the entire synopsis. It's one sentence, all I need. Next up, we have The Isle and the Silver Sea by Tasha Suri, and this comes out the 21st of October. This is described as a medieval folklore novel spanning centuries, full of sapphic romance longing. More specifically, there is a curse and story that haunts this land of a witch and a knight who are fated to fall in love with each other, but also doom each other in every lifetime over and over and over again. We follow our main characters, a knight and a witch, as they begin to fall for each other once again in this fated story that continuously occurs. But will they be able to break the cycle? Only time will tell. Then we have The Everlasting by Alex E. Haro. And I'll be honest, there definitely seems to be a lot of like medieval knight fantasy novels coming out this year, which I'm not complaining about, but it definitely feels like the trend of the season because we have another one. It's described as a genre-defying adventure through time, as a reluctant lady knight and a not so heroic historian have to fight through time and space together to rewrite their tragic fates and finally reveal the truths hidden beneath the greatest legend ever told. Again, a fated tragic love story and two characters who are trying to change fate in time, but I think we follow the entire timeline. And I think this book takes place over like thousands of years, which does sound quite intriguing and romantic to me. So I'm pumped for this. And then the last book on my list should be no surprise, and that is The Strength of the Few by James Islington. This is the second book to the Hierarchy series, the first one being The Will of the Many, a much anticipated release for a lot of us, and I cannot wait to read this. If you're not familiar, The Will of the Many is a Roman-inspired epic fantasy series introducing us to our main character who lives in a fantasy world where everything is organized by a hierarchy. Everyone lives and exists within this hierarchy, and it's not only like the social parameters in which people live, but also depending on where you are in this hierarchy, you give over your will to the empire. And the higher you are up in this pyramid, the more will you have to access to make yourself more powerful. It's like literally the magic system. Our main character will do anything to not have to give his will over to the empire, and he finds himself wrapped up in a variety of different conspiracies. He's pulled by one government faction to become a spy at this very prestigious military academy, then pulled quickly by another faction to spy on their behalf. So he's juggling a lot of different interests here while just trying to survive the day-to-day of his life and keep his own secrets. It's absolutely so plot forward. The ending of the first one had me on the edge of my seat, so I can't wait to see where the story is going to continue to go in the sequel installment. So I will be reading this right away. Alrighty guys, those are some of my most anticipated fall releases coming out this year. Please let me know down down below some books you hope to get to this fall, as I would love to know. I'm always looking for new books to add to my TBR, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye!